Hello again. In the last video, we review some tools that made us possible to define a problem, to have a diagnosis of a problem, and we used brainstorming, we used an affinity diagram, a relational diagram, and we finally get to define our problem. Now we're going to talk about how to define a solution of a problem that later you can make it into a project and you can better solve a problem. So today we are going to see some tools that will help us to better define the solution of a problem. The first of these tools, is going to be the tree diagram. It allows us to reach a goal. It is achieved through systematic organization of goals and the means to achieve them. It is presented through a core of general goal and continues with the levels of action of the branches. How are we going to use it? First of all, we are going to identify the main objective of a problem. We are going to identify secondary objectives that will help us to reach the main one. First, we're going to have the problem, the main idea. We are going to transform it into a solution. Then first, we are going to have main actions. And then we are going to identify most precise levels of actions, just as a level of a task, and start acting on them in order to achieve the objectives in stations until the goal is reached, until I solve the problem. For example, this is just a general example. We can ask our group, what are the main actions to be taken to solve the drug trafficking problem in Mexico, for example. That will be a main objective. Then we have some principal activities, and those activities are going to be divided into secondary, maybe third activities or fourth activities until we get to the level of tasks. Later, we are going to see an example to better understand this, but this is how it looks. It's a structure of the division of work, what we are seeing here. The problem or our objective, the principal activities to achieve this objective, the secondary activities, and so on until we get to the level of task. If in the secondary activities we are in a level of task, something that you can tell somebody to do, then you are set. You can continue with the solution of a problem and do so. And to do so, we need to establish other diagrams such as Gantt diagram, establish a performance indicator or KPIs, etc. There is another diagram that it's useful, and it's the matrix diagram. The tree diagram help us to establish the activities that we or I need to do to solve a specific problem. The matrix diagram facilitates the identification of relationships that could exist between two or more factors that can be problem, causes, processes. That's for us to have a better implementation of our solution. If two of our activities are related and those activities can solve one or more problems, then we can share resources to better resolve those activities. How are we going to use it? We are going to establish the elements to relate, to determine the type of matrix to apply. We are going to analyze each intersection of the matrix, indicating the degree of a relationship, if it's a strong, if it's a medium relationship, if it's weak, and we are going to confirm coherence between established relationships. It's not just to do the activity, just to do it, but we are trying to identify coherent relations so we can have a more efficient implementation of our solution. How would it look like? Here are the what's, the hows, what we want to do, how we are going to do it, the different features that I want, the different actions to accomplish those features and the relations between them. Feature number one and the 6 actions. Strong, mediums, or not related, or very weak relation. What are we going to find here? Things like this. Action number 5 has a strong relation between feature number 3 and feature number 1. Maybe when we were doing the tree analysis or the tree diagram, I established action number 5 just for feature number 3. But this diagram showed me that action number 5 also have a strong relation with feature number 3. For example, if this were a project and you have a budget for feature number 3 and a budget for feature number 1, and you can share resources to make action number 5 more efficient. There is also the diagram that it's prioritization arrays. So we can analyze a specific aspect of our project, of our solution, and see, according to one concept, for example, efficiency or the rate of success, how each of the set of activities established in the tree diagram are going to be successful or not according to the situation that we are living. It helps us to find significant difference between different aspects. Example, it encourages the generation of a general diagram to locate existing products and compensate them in relation to other products that are planned to be introduced in the market under a series of hypotheses. How to use it? We need to prepare the metrics that orders the data to be analyzed in rows and columns. We are going to construct a correlation matrix for each group of evaluators, and the spectrum of a range of characteristic values is obtained. This is an example of the feasibility of applying this set of features. And in the columns, we have a percentage of these feasibilities. What do we get from this diagram? That feature number 3, even though we thought it is useful, we have a 0 feasibility, a 0% of feasibility. So we need to define something different. Also for feature number 2, that has a 20% of feasibility. Feature number 1 has no problem. Feature number 2 has a 60% of feasibility, so we need to review feature number 2 and maybe redefine it. But for feature number 1 and feature number 3, we need to specify new aspects or really do a strong redefining of those features. The final tool that we are going to see today, it's the arrow diagrams. It represents the activities necessary to move from one event to the next. For example, the activities needed to solve a problem. It is represented in the form of a network of the logical sequence of the activities necessary to solve a problem, develop a project, etc. This is, for example, a set of activities. We need to analyze for each activity what activity is done before, what activities carry out at the same time, and what activity is done after. So from this set of activities, I take number 1, and I ask myself, from this set of activity, what activity is done before? What activity is carried out at the same time? And what activity is done after? So finally, I have this type of diagram. And I have a flow of activities, the sequence of activities that we need to do. We need to start by number 1. Then we can continue in parallel in number 2 and number 4. This is useful in projects. So when we go to the chronogram of activities, we can see which activities can be done at the same time. And this is important because every activity is going to need resources. And as a project administrator, as a project management, I need to manage those resources needed to perform activity number 2 and activity number 4 at the same time. Then number 3 is needed for number 6 and number 5. I can't start number 5 if number 4 and number 3 are already done. And they can be made in parallel, but only if those conditions are accomplished. And number 7 is the last of the activities. Okay, so just as I said on the last video, this is talk. Now we're going to continue with the example that we started in the diagnosis video. So we had one problem defined, that were that entrepreneurs do not realize their entrepreneurial ideas due to a poor projection of their ideas. This is the relational diagram, just to remember a little bit of what we have been doing. And now here's the tree diagram. So this is the problem, and these are the two main branches, or the two main set of actions. We need to prepare entrepreneurs for strong and consolidated competitors. We need to make more efficient processes to create business. And the next level of activities to prepare entrepreneurs for strong and consolidated competitors are to create entrepreneurial clubs, promote tiered entrepreneurship. To make more efficient processes to create business, we need to implement a personal follow-up of new business, and we need to implement an online system to register and follow up those ideas. This is our tree diagram, our main plan of our solution. Then we perform a matrix diagram when we relate the what's, that are these branches, and the hows, that are the activities. So we use the main branches of the tree diagram and the secondary branches, or the activities, and relate them. And from this diagram, I find that the strong relations just went between the activities created for each of the main branches. But there is a reasonable relation between the creation of entrepreneurship clubs and the bureaucratic processes for registration of a company. Why? Because somebody that had already registered their company can help those of them who are beginning with that registration. Okay? And this is an unintended but useful result of the creation of these entrepreneurship clubs. Then the prioritization matrix, and we see that here we don't have the specific concept, but it was feasibility, and we need to work a little better on the creation of entrepreneurship clubs, because the group defined that we had 50% of feasibility. So we need to rethink, not to change, not to eliminate, just to make it better. For the others, we have a reasonable feasibility for 75%. We need to improve this, of course, but 75 looks pretty good at the beginning. So we need to start with those activities. Finally, the error diagram tells us how we should do those activities. And by asking what activities can do are going to be done before, after, and what activities at the same time, this tells us that we can start by doing 3 of these activities: the creation of entrepreneurship clubs, the promotion of tiered entrepreneurship, the implement of a personal registration tracking, to implement an online system registration and monitor. And this gives us the sequence. So later in a project administration course, you can get to that project administration tools by having just the solution early planned. So you can put it into a chronogram, assign them resources, assign them times, but you have the main idea of what do you want to do. So never start with the management of a project if you don't have a diagnosis, a definition of a problem, and you have a structure of your solution. If you have a structure of your solution, such as the one that we analyzed today, you're not going to solve the problem because you're not having a real idea of what you want to solve. First, you want the problem definition and the problem solution, and then you can manage them in terms of a project. So this is it for this video. I hope you find it useful, and thank you very much. See you in the next video.